Hello, it's Steve from YOUvolution Learning and welcome to this video on bookkeeping transactions. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the most difficult task in bookkeeping transactions. I'll see you in a minute. So task 7 in the bookkeeping transactions exam is the joint worst performing task in the exam along with task 10. So be sure to watch my video on breaking task 10 down as well. Now task 7 is a tricky area. As we can see, only 70% of students pass this question, with 30% failing it. And if we break that down, we can see we've got a large area just here. We've got a large area here where students are struggling with this task. We've got 15% of students who are getting significantly below in this task and 11% with below requirements. Now, in order for us to get you from, if you are one of those students on the below requirements and significantly below, in order to get you from here to a MET, we're probably looking at around about 6 marks. Now, this task I think is worth around about 12 marks. That's around about half the marks. And I'm going to show you how we can break this task down and give you the best chance possible to be successful in the worst performing task in bookkeeping transactions. Okay, let's take a look at then what the examiner is telling us. So they let us know in the examiner's report that it is learning outcome 5, process transactions through the ledgers to the trial balance. And they let us know there are some strengths that students are demonstrating in this task. So we've got here, identify an amount in the trade receivables column that must be recorded in the sales ledger account, and identifying an amount in the trade payables column that must be recorded in the purchase ledger control account. So those students who are doing really well with understanding sales ledger control account and purchase ledger control account, you can see they're getting that part right. But they said they're struggling in some other areas. So let's take a look at where the examiner says students are struggling. So we've got reversal of entries, particularly with VAT. We've got incorrectly transferring the amount from cash purchases or cash sales from the cash book to the cash account, and then transferring the amount in the bank column to the general ledger when the cash book is part of the double entry bookkeeping system. And they also go on to let us know some further information as well, saying, and this is really good advice, so make sure you make a note of this stuff here. So students should recognize that if amounts appear in the debit side of the cash book, petty cash book, the entry in the general ledger must be on the opposite side. Similarly, if amounts appear on the credit side of the cash book or petty cash book, the opposite entry must appear on the debit side. That's really, really important information. And they also let us know that students should bear in mind that unless the assessment instructions state otherwise, the cash book is considered part of the double entry bookkeeping system. And that's really, really important to make a note of when you are doing your revision notes, is when you get to task 7, unless you are told otherwise, you make the assumption that the cash book that you're given is part of the double entry bookkeeping system already. That means that the cash and bank columns don't need to be processed. They're already being processed when the cash book is generated, because it's already part of the double entry bookkeeping system. So we'll go through that in this question and I'll break that down for you so you can see how that works. And they also let us know that students are advised to spend more time on this task to review the task instructions and responses that you have given. So make sure that you are reading through and understand the different bits of the question. And again, I'll do that when I break this task down for you. Now, students spend the least amount of time in this task and may have overlooked some key points that may have had an effect in their responses. Now, this combined with the fact that it's the worst performing task in this exam and students are spending the least amount of time on this task, there's a bit of an indication there that a little bit of extra time spent just working through the information and double checking your double entry and making sure that you've made the correct entries will go a long way to ensuring that you can be more successful in this task. So let's take a look at the AAT's practice assessment number 1 task and break this down so it's easy to manage and approach. Okay, so here we are with the task, and we can see it's looking at criteria 5.1, which is transfer data from the books of prime entry to the ledgers. Now this part of the task is literally just covering that, transfer the data from these books of prime entry that we've got to the relevant accounts in the ledger. So you can see we've got a cash book and we've got a list to be able to create our transactions, and you can see on the drop down there we've got a list of accounts that we need to select from. So let's go through the task. It says these are totals of the cash book at the end of the month, and you can see we've got the cash book, and you can see it kind of looks like a T account like this here. This is our debit side and this is our credit side. You can see it's the cash book. Now one of the main bits the examiner said to us in their information was students should bear in mind that unless the assessment instructions state otherwise, the cash book is considered part of the double entry bookkeeping system, and therefore no entry in respect of the bank columns, which is the cash and bank here, need to be transferred to the general ledger. So you can see in the task it hasn't said that this is not part of the double entry bookkeeping system, so we need to make the assumption that it is. So therefore we don't need to post any of these here because they're already being done by the cash book. It's part of the double entry bookkeeping system. Okay, so let's go through the task itself then. You can see here that we've got 4 account name boxes, so we only need to post maybe 4 transactions or to 4 accounts. So what are those accounts going to be? Well, let's take a look at what we've got information. You can see on the debit side of the cash book, you can see we've only got trade receivables column that's got any value in there. And then on the credit side of the cash book, you can see we've got VAT, trade payables, and cash purchases. So that's our 4 accounts. Account 1, 2, 3, and 4. So those are the accounts that need to appear in here. Now let's just go through each one of those at a time. So the first one says trade receivables. Now you can see from the list here, we don't have a trade receivables. Now you should know from your studies that trade receivables are also referred to as our sales ledger control account. So you can see we've got sales ledger control account here. So that's the account we're going to select for the trade receivables. So we're just going to put sales ledger control account here. The amount, it gives us the amount 16370. So let's just put that in 16370. And then which side of the sales ledger control account does this need to appear? Well, as you can see, it's already posted to the debit side of the cash book, which is the debit side of the bank account really. So that means because the debit side has already been done, we then need to post the opposite entry to the credit side. So that's going to go to the credit side of the sales ledger control account. So that's the first one done. The next one is VAT, as you can see, and it's for £59. And again, this one has been posted to the credit side of the cash book. So therefore, when we post to the VAT account, it needs to go on the debit side. Again, just completing that double entry. We're crediting the cash book with the VAT amount here, and therefore we're debiting the VAT account itself. And I'll go through a little bit more understanding on debits and credits in a second. But I do have some other videos as well, as you'll see from the channel, that go through breaking down double entry bookkeeping and make it really simple for you. So make sure after this video you go and check those ones out as well. So we've done VAT. Let's take a look at trade payables. And again, we don't have a trade payables account in our list that we've got here. And again, just like the sales ledger control account, it has a different name. So we've got trade payables. It's also referred to as our purchase ledger control account. So we're just going to put purchase ledger control account here. The value it gives us is 9942. And again, because this has been credited to the cash book, we're going to debit the purchase ledger control account. And that completes the double entry for that transaction. So the next one then is our cash purchases, and you can see we've got an account for cash purchases as well within our list. So the account name will just be cash purchases. And again, the value is given to us, which is 295. So we're just going to enter the value in. And again, because the cash purchases has been credited to the cash book, we're just going to debit that to the cash purchases. Now, with a question like this, there's some key areas that we need to make sure we're completely confident with. First one is the cash book that's been given to us part of the double entry bookkeeping system or not? And as it says in the examiner's information, that unless it's stated otherwise, it will be part of the double entry bookkeeping system, just like this one here. So that means because of that, we don't need to worry about the cash and bank columns. We only need to deal with those other columns within the cash book, as you can see from this one. Make sure you're making a note of the debit and credit side of the cash book. So therefore, when you come to post the other side of the entries, you're posting them to the opposite side of those accounts as well. Okay, so another way that we can take a look at this is if we we just draw out the two accounts for the trade receivables transaction. You can see we've got the cash book, which is also referred to as the bank in most cases. So we've got the cash book there. You can see that we have money coming in and money coming out as our debit and our credits. So that means that we increase on the debit side and then we decrease the bank on the credit side. Now, normally the bank account is treated as an asset account in most cases, unless it's called a bank overdraft, and obviously it'll be a liability. But in this case, we can just assume that it's going to be an asset. So an asset account is a debit account. And when we debit an asset account, we increase that account. And then when we credit the asset account, we decrease that account. So when our customers pay us, our trade receivables pay us, that's money coming into the bank. As so. Then we've got the sales ledger control account. Now within the sales ledger control account, Now within the sales ledger control account, we'll have some invoices in there already to the value of 16,370. So when our customers are paying us, they're paying for those invoices. So you can see the money's gone into the bank as a debit. And then what we're going to do now is credit the sales ledger control account with that 16,370. And again, this sales ledger control account is an asset account. So that means that we increase on this side. So when invoices are generated, it's increasing the value that our customers owe us. And then on the opposite side, the credit side, we decrease. So when our customers pay us, we're decreasing the value that those customers owe to us. So that's one of the ways in which we can utilize things like dead click to help us. We understand the account type. Once we've used the account type, we can then understand how that's affected by transactions in terms of increasing the value of that account or decreasing the value of that account. So when our customers are paying us, we're decreasing the value of the sales ledger control account. And that's why we're crediting that account. And the same when it comes to the opposite side as well. When we pay our suppliers, so when we pay our trade payables, that account, the trade payables account, is a liability account. So an increase in a liability account will be a credit transaction. But when we pay our suppliers, we're reducing the value on that account. So therefore, we're going to debit that account. It's decreasing. Okay, as you can see, that's what we've done exactly here. We've decreased the value of the purchase ledger control account. Okay, so that's that task broken down. Try to make it a bit simpler for you. When it comes to making sure you're okay with this question, like I said, the first thing you do, is it part of the double entry bookkeeping system or not? Make sure you know which columns you need to post. Make sure you're understanding the different names for some of those accounts, like trade payables and trade receivables can also be referred to as purchase ledger control account and sales ledger control account as well. And then you've got the other accounts on there. We've got VAT, we've got cash purchases. You may even have cash sales, as you can see in this one, but obviously there's no value in there, and VAT on the debit side as well. Okay, so that's that question broken down, and hopefully it's made that a bit simpler for you. Now I do have another video on this task in practice assessment 2, so be sure to check that one out after this video as well, because it's a bit different than this one. Okay, just to wrap up then, just to summarise what we've covered, the examiner tells us that this task 7 is covering learning outcome 5, and in particular looked at learning outcome 5.1, which was transfer data from the books of prime entry to the ledgers. Okay, so that's this video done. Make sure you check out my next video on practice assessment 2 for task 7, and I'll see you in that one. See you guys.